There are a few unspoken rules in Formula 1, such as not overtaking in the final corner before starting your fast lap in qualifying, or no jorking it in the cockpit as you drive around. But perhaps the most important one is don't crash into your teammate. There are many good reasons as to why you don't want to do this. The mechanics probably won't be very happy with you, and you'll be giving them double the amount of work to do if you break both cars. And then you've got to see them for a full working week. There's also the fact that your teammate, you know, the guy who can help you if you need some help, and most likely the person you'll be spending most of your time on track with,
Axel, my beloved,
well, they'll probably hate you. And that does make life a little bit difficult. There's also the fact that if you don't like being shouted at by your boss, it's probably a good idea to avoid wiping out not just your chance of scoring points, but your teammate's chance of scoring points as well. So today, I thought it'd be a good idea to look at the times Formula 1 drivers have flat out ignored this advice. Then I'm going to try and figure out which driver is to blame. And of course, I will be reviewing the most recent incident of Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri having a crash at Canada 2025. Now, speaking of McLaren drivers, 2025 is not the first time two McLaren drivers have come together. And it probably won't be the last time either, let's be honest. Back in Austria in 1999, the McLaren lineup was Mika Häkkinen and David Coulthard. Now, Coulthard and Häkkinen were both good drivers, much like Lando and Oscar. People even believed both of them were capable of winning world championships, which of course means every now and then they'd meet together on track. Unfortunately, this time they met a little bit too fast because Coulthard sent his car into the back of Mika Häkkinen, therefore making him do a spin. Now, I think the blame firmly falls with David Coulthard on this one, but at least he didn't destroy either of the cars. I guess that is a bit of a positive, and Häkkinen was even able to recover to third at the end of the race. Then again, David, mate, if you are going to take your teammate out, at least win the race. Don't let Eddie Irvine in the Ferrari beat you to the race win. I mean, that is just embarrassing considering your teammate was the one on pole. I'll be honest though, Minecraft Steve and Mika Häkkinen's crash, it's definitely not the most famous between two McLaren drivers. That, of course, has to go to Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost in 1989. Further before that, in 1985, Prost had won his first ever world championship with the McLaren team. Then in 1986, he did it again.
Oh God!
gritty.
In 87, Williams managed to have a better car and Nelson Piquet won. He really puts the racist in racing. I don't know if that'll make it in the video. And for 1988, Alain Prost had a new teammate in a young man called Ayrton Senna. Now, in 1988, Senna actually beat Prost to the World Championship, something that through deep thought and much analysis, I have concluded that Prost didn't really like very much. So in 1989, you can bet Prost wasn't going to let it happen again. Throughout that season, he raced Senna very hard, and although Ayrton did also suffer from some reliability issues, heading towards the last few rounds, Alain was ahead in the championship. But then they went to every soy man's favorite country, place Japan. What could possibly go wrong? Well, early on, Prost took the lead, but as the race went on, Senna began to close back in. And when Senna sent a move from Saudi Arabia, Prost was having none of it. He closed the door, he took the apex, however you want to phrase it, and the two of them crashed. Obviously, Senna blamed Prost blames Senna, as two mature adults do. But who do I, the all-knowing Dan No Skill, blame? Who has never made a dirty move in my entire life?
No!
Who do I blame for this incident? Well, ultimately, I think most of the blame has to lie with Senna. He sent the move from way too far back. He may as well have been in China. Now, Prost could have seen him and could have given him space. But at the end of the day, the corner was his, and he benefited more from just binning Senna out of it, because that then led to Prost winning the 1989 title. So in the end, it was Senna who was at fault for making contact with his teammate and therefore losing himself the world title. I guess kids weren't the only thing he touched. That's... yeah. Anyway, it's not like it stopped Senna from making a super clean move into turn 1 next year when Prost was in Ferrari.
So go down the inside of my championship roll jam pancakes.
And then, of course, won the championship from it. Always remember, kids, if gap car. Now, if somehow you are still a fan of McLaren after all of those lovely incidents, then you should consider getting yourself some official McLaren F1 merch, or in fact, any F1 merch from V12RS, because over there you can get yourself a 10% discount using code DanNoSkill10, and whatever you do purchase over there, a portion of it goes back towards the channel, which I really do appreciate. Another way to support the channel is simply by subscribing. Please do it. Please. I love the number going up. Or becoming a channel member like these lovely people here have. One of the benefits is you get a shout out in every video. So thank you so much to the people who have done it. But that's enough yap from me, because McLaren, they are not the only team who've experienced a world champion clash with a younger prodigy driver. That's because in 2019, Charles Leclerc was partnering Sebastian Vettel for young Leclerc's first ever year at Ferrari. Now, Leclerc has built up a reputation of actually being quite a clean racer. Now, I'm not gonna lie, when Leclerc goes wheel to wheel with someone, 99 times out of 100, it leads to spectacular side-by-side racing.
I won't let you go.
That is respectful and clean. But you've got to remember, 2019 was just Leclerc's second season in Formula 1. And let's also be real, Sebastian Vettel isn't the least aggressive driver ever. When Vettel wants something or disagrees with something, he's not afraid to show it.
Timely say
Yeah, you know what? Here's the message for Charlie.
I'll come out my house and I'll break your fucking legs, you little prick!
For example, there's the time Vettel cut the corner in Canada, got a penalty for rejoining unsafely, completely disagreed with the penalty, and swapped the boards after the race to put himself as first. I think the penalty was justified, but I also think that was hilarious from Vettel. Or there was even the time Lewis slowed down under the safety car, and in Vettel's eyes, he thought he brake checked him, so he just went alongside Lewis and slammed into the side of him. Just a little kiss between the F1 cars. Anyway, Leclerc and Vettel were racing each other very hard during the 2019 Brazilian Grand Prix. And instead of leaving a little bit of space, you know, as they are teammates and you don't really want to crash with your teammate, they decided to get as close as possible to each other, because who needs all of that tarmac? Clearly it is useless. Before they'd even made the corner, they'd given each other punctures and led to a double Ferrari DNF. What can I say? At this point, that's probably the happiest day us Ferrari fans get. At least a DNF means we don't have to watch the awful strategy. You may be wondering, who do I put at fault for this incident? Well, this is the first one I am going to deem as just that.
It's an incident on the race.
Both of them should have left just a little bit more space for each other, especially considering they are teammates. In the words of the Italians, mamma mia. How can I mention crashing into your teammate without mentioning the king of this maneuver, Esteban Ocon? Ocon is good at many things. He's decent at driving in wet races. He's really, really good at being annoying.
Esti besties on the podium, baby!
But he's the absolute best at getting involved in crashes with his teammate. Let's start in Belgium 2017, where him and Perez had a little coming together up to Eau Rouge. Now, in general, you don't ever really want to go side by side with anyone towards Eau Rouge and Radion, because it is already a hard enough corner without having another car right next to you.
Show me your willy!
So if it's hard enough with any car next to you, that generally means you really don't want to do it when it's your teammate you're racing. Esteban, however, he did not care. And so he placed himself alongside Sergio Perez, who was just not having any of it, and pushed Esteban away into the wall, giving himself a puncture. Now, I bet you thought I was going to place this as Esti Bestie's fault. But at the end of the day, he's really allowed to overtake wherever the fuck he wants, as long as it's safe. And Ocon was far enough alongside Sergio Perez to warrant himself being given a little bit of room. Sergio Perez was just having none of it. He didn't want to give Ocon room. And so actually, I think more of the blame lies with him. Like I said, it's not the most risk-averse move from Ocon ever. It's not what us safe road users would call defensive driving, and I personally probably wouldn't race my teammate into Eau Rouge. But at the end of the day, Ocon didn't break any rules in doing what he did. So let's see about the next time Perez and Ocon came together. That sounds really, really wrong. In Singapore. Now, I'm just going to show you. This is the crash from Sergio's point of view.
Oh, hello there.
And this is the same crash from Ocon's point of view. This was a tricky one for me to decide, but I think the blame has to lie with Esteban Ocon. Perez did leave enough room for his teammate. If you look, even after Ocon is firmly in the wall, there's still enough track alongside Perez to fit a car. I think this incident purely comes down to Ocon being French and fancying taking a day off work. So if you look, he steers a bit too much, hits his teammate's tires, and bounces off into the wall. But then he could go enjoy a full day of complaining about things, eating cheese, and designing horrible looking cars. Thank you so much for your contribution, France. The next really big coming together for Esteban Ocon was in 2023, and I am aware that sentence sounded like he's playing soggy biscuit with Pierre Gasly, but I promise you that was not the case. It was a Formula 1 crash. I mean, they might have also played it. I have no evidence it didn't happen, but I also have no evidence it did. In 2023, the FIA and the geniuses who work over there decided to do a standing red flag restart with 2 laps to go. I'm sure absolutely no one will send it into turn 1. Oh no, that is not good. Oh. So this time, in all of the chaos, Pierre Gasly came across Esteban Ocon. I am ignoring the fact that that sounds like he's given him a facial. If anyone is blind and watching this video, I'm very sorry. F1 has so many sexual phrases. It was pretty clear cut. It was Gasly's fault in this incident. I guess he forgot wing mirrors existed, but in all fairness, he did take complete responsibility for that crash after the fact. And so, fair enough, Gasly, it was an honest mistake. The same cannot be said for the next crash involving Ocon and Gasly. That actually ended up costing Ocon his job at Alpine. This time it happened a year later in Monaco. What you're seeing right now is the Monaco hairpin. This next is a weird little squiggly corner after it. And this corner is the one right before the Monaco tunnel where time and time again, we've been reminded why you don't go side by side here. So let's see. Another corner where trying to overtake anyone is dangerous, never mind your teammate. Let's have a look at what Esteban Ocon chose to do. Oh, Esteban. Esty bestie. What were you thinking? Probably about wine, cheese, and the Renault Avantime. But you silly, silly Billy. This was by far the stupidest move Ocon had made yet. And at the end of the day, led to Alpine being so fed up with his antics, they relegated him to the worst place possible. America. Touch wood, so far, Ocon has yet to have a crash with his teammate at Haas, probably because this time the team owner is allowed to own a gun. Funnily enough, Ocon and Gasly are not the first pairing to have had multiple crashes as teammates together, because Jean Alesi and Nick Hydefeld crashed twice in one season, one race after another. Firstly, we're in France 2000, and Nick Hydefeld was attempting an overtake on a Benetton car in front of him, and in front of the Benetton was his teammate Jean Alesi. Unfortunately for Nick, he locked up, ran deep, and sent his teammate into a spin. Entirely Nick's fault, but what can I say except double fucking overtake? Oh yeah, fuck your teammate, fuck the rules, fuck clean racing. It was so worth it to finish P12 and score 0 points. But now for the next round, let's calm down. Let's think about what these two teammates can do. They could have a conversation, maybe talk about giving each other just that little bit more room. They would definitely need to work together as a team, especially when they were in such a shit car as the Prost that year. Well, the next round in Austria, Jean Alesi was attempting a move on Hydefeld, and from about 6 Eiffel Towers away, he smashed into the side of his teammate, taking both cars out. Honestly, it's no wonder that combined with how shit the cars were that year, the Prost team scored a grand total of 0 points throughout 2000. You know what though? I can forgive multiple crashes between teammates when they're in a bit of a rubbish car. At the end of the day, it's not like it really ends up having any implication for the championship. Not like Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg in 2016. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I am trying to figure out who's to blame in each incident. So for this year, I'm going to start with the easier of the two first, even if that means it's not in chronological order. Austria 2016. Hamilton and Rosberg were at the peak of their rivalry. Their friendship has turned so sour, Hamilton is no longer on the Rosberg family Christmas card list, and Lewis will not be inviting Nico to his birthday party next year. Going into turn 3 at Austria, because yes, for some reason, the small bend on the flat out straight is considered turn 2, Nico was attempting a terrorist attack on Lewis. I mean, he absolutely sent it, missed the apex by about 500 miles, and smashed into the side of him. I think you can tell who I put the blame with on this one. The funniest thing was, this broke his own front wing and led to Lewis Hamilton winning, and Nico only getting a 4th place, scoring vastly less points. I don't actually think the crash was intentional. I just think Nico sent it way too hard into Lewis.
Did I go for it? Did I send it? Or didn't send it?
The next crash between the two is much more difficult to decide who the blame lies with. And it's of course the one everyone remembers in Spain 2016. Ha 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 ha! Look at that crash, it is so funny. I like the part where they take each other out. Unfortunately, I've given myself the task of trying to assign the blame. And this one is very much just the effect of having two very competitive drivers fighting as teammates for the World Championship. Now in Formula 1, you are allowed to make a move to defend, which is what Nico did. And to be fair, he did do it right after the exit of the turn before. It's not like he left it to the last minute. Hamilton had just had such a good run out of the corner before, he was already kind of alongside Nico. And by the time he had his front tire alongside Nico's rear, Hamilton was kind of entitled to the space. However, if he wanted to avoid the crash, Hamilton probably should have just backed out. Then he would have lived to fight for another day at least. Instead, he tried to be a hero by going half on the grass and half off it, which does occasionally work in racing, but it didn't, and crash. I think Nico does get the blame for not leaving the space, but if Lewis was being a bit more careful, he should have seen that the space was closing, backed off, and tried the overtake in a different area. It was a good day for Max Verstappen fans though, so there's something. Speaking of Max, he actually had a few incidents with his former teammate, Daniel Ricciardo, like in 2017 at the start of the Hungarian Grand Prix. Max Verstappen took one look at Daniel Ricciardo's side pod and decided he thought the design would look a lot better with a big hole in it. Very clearly Max's fault, there's not much more to say. The next incident wasn't quite as clear. It's Azerbaijan, a track known for having that one funny corner,
I am stupid.
and also having the longest straight known to man. It was at the end of this long-ass straight, Daniel Ricciardo and Max Verstappen got just a little bit too close together and caused a very big crash. This again is another tricky one to assign blame to, because at first it does just look like Danny Ric drove into the back of Max Verstappen, something he stole shamelessly from Lance Stroll 6 years beforehand. Let's first talk about what Danny Ric was actually trying to do with that whole weaving side-to-side thing. He was trying to throw Max a bit of a dummy. Max had gone defensive by taking up the inside, which he's perfectly fine to do. So Ricciardo was moving out wide, which also coaxes Max to move along wide as well, because that's how you get a bit of a better braking zone. But in the dummy maneuver Ricciardo was trying to do, he then swiped back across Max to go take the inside. And at this point here, you can see there's enough room for Ricciardo's F1 car. This is where Max does a big no-no. He moves across under braking to block Ricciardo reacting to the move, and therefore leads to the funny. Which means I'm going to put Max at fault for this incident, as moving under braking and moving to react and block and overtake are two big nutters in Formula 1. But also, Danny Ric, pal, did you really need to be racing your teammate that hard? Of course, Ricciardo and Max crashing was not the first time two of Red Bull drivers drivers had come together. I really need to stop saying that. Back in Turkey 2010, Mark Webber and Sebastian Vettel were racing each other at Red Bull, not just for points, but for the world title. So that makes it like 50 times more dramatic. Just add the Drive to Survive boom sound effect. This incident again is a lot like the Leclerc and Vettel one from 2019. I guess Vettel is consistent, at least. They just kind of blended into each other. I do think Mark actually ends up holding a bit more of a straight line than Sebastian, who's kind of coming across, but it's still a very difficult one for me to just go, you are at fault, it's your fault. The best part of this crash in Turkey was the fact that it gave us a really funny team radio afterwards.
What the f*** are we doing here? What is stupid action? I'm going home. You.
Enough yapping. Let's talk about the two teammates who most recently came together, Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. This incident is actually very similar to another one from 2011, which was also between two McLaren drivers. McLaren really are quite good at the teammates crashing stuff. Maybe they need to revise those papaya rules. In 2011, it was Jenson Button and Lewis Hamilton who were involved. Firstly, this race was absolutely fucking awesome. And if you want to actually see the full recap, but with funny stuff in it, you can watch my video here all about it. But this incident at the start saw Button and Hamilton crash and led to Lewis ending his race with a DNF. This time, it was actually very clearly Jenson's fault. He even admitted that to Hamilton in the paddock during a red flag period. But in 2025, the crash was not Oscar's fault, who was in Jenson's position, but Jenson Piastri or Oscar Button. Well, this time, he was about a car length ahead of where Jenson was in 2011. And Lando went for a gap that didn't exist. If you no longer go for a gap that doesn't exist, you are no longer a pro bottler. Massive respect to Lando, who did immediately admit it was his fault and even apologized to Oscar straight afterwards. That's going to really help keep that teammate bond between them and not sour any relationship. But at the end of the day, it was a very silly and overall unnecessary incident. Lando should have just backed out, but he knows that. He doesn't need the silliest man on F1 YouTube to tell him that. Plus, it's even benefit Piastri more in the championship, so he's not going to be that mad. Those are my thoughts on the incidents of teammates crashing between each other. Hopefully, I wasn't too controversial in the people I picked to blame. And a big thanks again to my channel members for your support. I really do appreciate it. It goes a long way. Thank you so much for helping me out. Have a lovely rest of your day, everybody, and goodbye.